Ask Reddit, what's the dumbest thing you've ever cried over? My dad recorded the '98 World Cup final over an episode of Arthur I didn't get around to watching yet. I lost all my money on Neopets due to a random event. I didn't realize that this is what had happened, of course. I went onto the forums and said I had been hacked because clearly this is the only explanation I could think of, being the early teen, 14 or so, that I was. I was then called a liar and received reply upon reply about how you couldn't get hacked on Neopets and that I needed to stop making up stories. I fell out of the chair, crawled to the stairs, and sobbed down to my grandmother, who went into a full-on panic. She later told me she thought someone had died and that I had somehow been the first to find out. Fuck that stupid sloth character for stealing my money, and fuck that stupid avatar I got for the event. Wasn't even a pretty avatar. To be fair, Neopets was a pretty big deal. I remember investing a truly ridiculous amount of time into saving up money and buying paintbrushes. I got grounded off the computer when I was 12 and cried to my mom, "But my Neopets will starve!" I still waste too much time on Neopets. When I was 13, I cried to the episode of SpongeBob where Gary leaves SpongeBob for Patrick. This is what I wanted to read.
I thought what we had was special!
If you didn't cry during the episode where Gary gets lost and they play Gary Come Home, you're a monster.
I messed up and now you're gone.
My daughter started crying the other day because she had just finished peeing and it took too long and it was boring, and she realized she had a lifetime of boring pees to look forward to. Edit. I just told my daughter about this and she didn't like that I posted it. She would rather you know that
I like unicorns and fairies and teddy bears, and everyone else does too. Unicorns have big horns and they love everyone. Do you like unicorns? If you agree, press here. Press the subscribe button.
I promised to limit her YouTube consumption. One time when I was much younger, my brother was taking a dump before going to school. He got a whiff of his poop and it was too much for him, so he threw up. I've done that after some nights of hard drinking. When I was 6 or 7, I grew an attachment to a watermelon. My dad had bought it at a farmer's stand, and for some reason, I just thought it was too amazing to be eaten. I decided it should be a new family pet. Even though my young, logical brain knew it was ridiculous, some part of me just latched onto the idea of a pet watermelon. A week or so later, my brother chopped it in half with a machete, and I bawled for about 2 hours. I think it's safe to say that that was the end of my childhood. You and I have very similar stories. Back when I was about 6 years old, my mother bought me one of those tiny pumpkins that seemingly sprung out of nowhere during the autumn months. It was too small to carve, and I didn't feel like painting it, so I put the pint-sized squash on my desk and promptly forgot about it. Until a few weeks later, when I had realized it had started to sprout grayish-white fur. After reporting this amusing phenomenon to my mother, I was informed that my pumpkin was literally rotting and instructed me to throw it away. That was easier said than done, though, because although I had never really paid much attention to the damn thing, I had nonetheless come to regard it as being an essential fixture of my bedroom. It took a concerning amount of coaxing, as well as a few vivid descriptions of what mold could do to my lungs before I finally followed my mother's instructions, and I spent the rest of the day feeling strangely depressed. The next day, I asked my teacher, at a Catholic school I should mention, if pumpkins go to heaven. They don't, and learning that fact made me burst into tears. TLDR, my beloved pumpkin never found Jesus. I love that it's not so much the loss of your pumpkin as it was the infinitely more devastating loss of its immortal soul. I don't have the talent, but if I could, I would draw a picture of your rotten, furry zombie pumpkin baby in heaven for you. Don't worry, I already did. And here it is! Look at it, isn't it beautiful? Oh, I'm not making fun of it. This is really a good picture. I can tell it was made in Procreate, though. I used those same brushes. That's beautiful. That's literally the best use of DeviantArt, to make other people's dreams come true, no matter how questionable. When I was about 12 or 13, I saw Jurassic Bark, the infamous Futurama episode where Fry's dog dies. The final scene brought out the waterworks in me, and soon I found myself audibly sobbing to a Matt Groening show. Unbeknownst to me, my mother had snuck into my room and was watching me cry. She broke the silence by asking me what was wrong, but I was so embarrassed by crying over an animated comedy series that I immediately thought up a lie. I told my mom that a recent divorce, she and my stepfather had broken up 6 months before, was really taking a toll on me. She found me a therapist and insisted I go talk to them. It cost her $300 worth of sessions with a shrink before I could admit that my emotions weren't fueled by a now broken family, but instead by a cartoon dog. Fry's dog always choked me up. That episode had me bawling too, especially at the end where Fry assumes the dog would have forgotten and moved on, and during the credits it shows that the dog waited for him the whole time. Great, now I'm tearing up again. In the 2nd grade, my mom found me crying in my bed, completely inconsolable. When she asked what was wrong, I said, through violent tears, "People are dying in Africa because cheetahs are eating them, and there's nothing we can do to stop it!" I think that was me first realizing that the world had a lot of issues that couldn't easily be solved, but it's pretty funny looking back on it. If I was your mom, I probably would have peed myself laughing. I'm pretty sure cheetahs are the least of their worries. You probably don't care, but cheetahs aren't hostile towards humans typically. That's hilarious. Oh god, I'm dying. At least someone in Africa is getting to eat. As a 26-year-old straight man, I cried during the Justin Bieber movie. I was unbelievably high. Edibles fucked up my shit, and on an airplane moving to New York from California, and had a panic attack. Instead of declaring a medical emergency, which was my first thought, I decided to watch a movie and try to calm myself down. There's a part in the movie where he sends someone out to the line to give kids front row tickets or something, and these kids just freak out. I was overwhelmed by their joy and started crying because of it. I've told some of my friends this story, and they told me they've lost all respect for me and asked me not to tell people this story. When I was pregnant, I was seriously craving a McDonald's fish sandwich. It was on my mind all day while I was at work. I was really craving the tartar sauce. I was driving home and swung through the drive-thru and ordered one fish sandwich with extra tartar sauce. I put the bag on the passenger seat and drove the rest of the way home. I got home, got my sandwich out of the bag, and took a big bite, expecting satisfaction. They didn't put any tartar sauce on it. I cried until my husband came home. He went and got me a new one and checked it before he left. You know M&M Minis, right? The cheap chocolate candy that's now sized in a way that you feel slightly less guilty about eating 30 at a time. They come in fun little tubes like this designed to facilitate the process of pouring them directly into your esophagus. At some point, when I was around 7 or 8, they had some where the labels just showed M&Ms of a single color. A whole bunch of blue M&Ms on one tube label, for instance, and a whole bunch of red ones on another. I knew that the different candy shells were all the same flavor anyway, but for some reason the idea of a tube full of nothing but red excited me. So I bought a couple tubes with my allowance money. The M&Ms in the tube had the irregular assorted colors. For what may have been the first time in my young life, I felt a sense of betrayal. I almost worked up the nerve to call the questions and comments number listed on the label. Looking back, I wonder how often the people on the other end of that line get calls from children too distraught to form a coherent sentence. Oh, just last week or so, pregnant me went from Curiosity killed the cat to wondering if the Curiosity rover might have killed a stray cat starting its journey to Mars. And I cried ugly for a potential kitten being fried to death on a launch pod in Cape Canaveral. Was too drunk to unlock my door, but sober enough to realize what was happening. Gave up, sat down, and cried for about 20 minutes, then tried again and got in. Once when I was drunk, I cried about not having a doorknob for my bedroom door, lol, and Google searched doorknobs. Made me laugh when I remembered it though.